Today we're going to talk about assumptions and how assumptions make us behave in certain ways, and how, if you want to get out of a rut, if you want to change something, questioning your assumptions can be one of the most powerful things that you can do. So it's very hard actually to think about assumptions, precisely because assumptions are the kind of things we assume, like we take for granted to be a truth, right? It's by definition something we don't think about because we're assuming it. Like, let me give you an example. I assume that North Korea, right now here in Seoul, in South Korea, like North Korea isn't gonna bomb South Korea tomorrow. That is my assumption based on whatever fact, opinion, situation, experience. And because I assume that North Korea is not going to bomb South Korea, I go about my day in a normal way. I don't start like finding out where I can like take my family under a bunker and start storing up in tin tuna with home gyms and protein and all this kind of stuff, because I assume that's not going to happen, right? And you probably have a lot of these assumptions too. You probably assume that your pet is not going to be terminally ill tomorrow, or that you suddenly a virus is going to spread and kill everybody in the world. And these assumptions are the basis upon which we take daily actions, we keep our sanity, and we do lots of things that we do. Okay? But the example that I gave, it's kind of obvious we assume these things because they're almost certain. But there are other assumptions that are more in the gray area that you hold based on your experience, your history, your thoughts, your past experiences, that make sure that you act in a certain way, that keeps you acting, thinking, behaving in a certain way. And one of the most powerful ways to like change your perspective, to do something differently, is to do this. What are my assumptions about this thing? And what if I had different assumptions? What if those assumptions could be challenged? Let's take an example about dating. Let's say dating, why not? Right? A lot of you watching this might assume that you are unattractive to the opposite sex, that you're undesirable to women or to guys or whatever. And you assume this based on whatever thing happened or whatever thing you think. And this assumption makes you not go for certain types of people. You're like, there's no way she would like me, right? There's no way she's gonna like me. I'm like a overweight 45-year-old with a beer belly and I don't look good. She clearly wants a stud in his 20s. There's no way. You make this assumption based on what you think is reasonable and all of this stuff. So what does that do? It means when you see someone you like in a bar or whatever, you would never go up to her and say hi in a kind of romantic way, because you already assumed this. So there you have an example of how your assumption just made you behave in that way. Let's say you held the opposite assumption. Let's say we challenged that assumption that you're ugly, that you're undesirable, that there's no way she would go for a guy like you. But you had a different assumption that, like, as long as you were genuine and that based on all the things that you did in your life, you have a lot of value to share to this person that you would talk to, and there's very much a chance that she would be attracted to you. Let's just say, like, forget how like reasonable that might be from someone else's perspective. Like, genuinely, if you assumed something else, you would act differently. You would act differently, and therefore your results, your outcomes will be different. I'm not saying you would necessarily get this young girl if you're an old guy watching this, but what I'm saying is that you would take that action, and therefore your outcomes will be different. Because over time, if you held that assumption, you will likely meet someone that does think in the same way that you do. And so your real world outcomes will change. And this applies across the board to your fitness, to your fat loss, you assume if you eat late at night, you're not going to lose fat. You assume that if you have the hamburger, you're going to gain weight. You assume that this and that, and this makes you act this way. And it's like your blind spot. And one of the coolest things that happens when you have conversations, dialogues with people that, that are from another country, that are from another walk of life, that are from another profession, is that they will challenge those assumptions. They'll be like, bro, no, you don't get it. Like, it's not like that. You can eat late at night and still lose fat. You can be 45 years old and still attract young women. You can live in a world and make a whole load of money, way more than you do right now. Whatever the hell. I just took random examples. But this is, and it's funny, all of these examples I just kind of came up with, but what made me realize, not realize, but what made me think about this topic anyway was, I have a fitness channel where I make videos on fitness, and I've always been sticking to this format of making this like one type of video where I have an introduction, and then I'm sitting down and I'm talking and I'm explaining certain points in a certain order. And I was watching this other content creator that was doing a whole different setup where he was just doing things and it was just a voiceover of what he was doing. And then I realized I'd been operating under the assumption that the only way that people would really watch my videos was if I stuck to this format of sitting in front of a desk, of a camera and a desk and just talking. That the success of my channel or the viewership of my channel depended upon the continued delivery in this format. But this is an assumption, right? This is an assumption. It's a blind spot that I take for granted, that another person might come and be like, hey, bro, why don't you make some other kinds of content, like some other types? Like, you just sit at a desk, like you just do something different. And then because my assumption was challenged, I might actually do something different. Do you see? So what am I saying in this video is, ask yourself, where are your assumptions? What are you assuming right now that could be challenged? There's certainly too many to list out, but in the areas that you care about, right? Let's say you care about getting a girlfriend, or let's say you care about becoming more attractive to the opposite sex. Let's say you care about making more money. Let's say you care about switching jobs. You're assuming that if you quit your job, you're going to have no money, that everyone's going to laugh at you, that your life is ended and nobody's going to want you. And if you follow your path, then everyone's going to be like, who are you to do this? Everyone's going to laugh at you, right? That's what you assume. And as someone that's kind of taken a path like this, it's just false assumption. False assumptions appearing real. Fear. False assumptions appearing real, right? So what are your false assumptions? What are your assumptions? Ask yourself in the fields that you care about, and realize that the chances are your assumptions are false. You're not gonna die broke if you quit your job. You're not gonna get blown out by that girl. And you're not gonna go to shit if you change this one thing that you think is integral to whatever it is that you do, because it's probably not the case. So I don't know who needed to hear this, but it was a thought on my mind, and I thought I'd share it with you. Let me know if this makes sense, / if you have any questions, and see you around.